Hi, welcome to this course on data mesh. I am Sendil. I am a big data and cloud architect. I will be the presenter of this session. So this is a series of session which will be explained from basic to the implementation on data mesh. Hope it might be helpful for you. So in the first session, we will be seeing at the high level of introduction of data mesh, in which we'll be seeing what is data mesh and why we need data mesh, and we'll be discussing about the architecture design that came over the few decades that will help us to understand why we need data mesh. At final of this session, we'll be discussing at the higher level on the principles of the data mesh. So if you are already familiar with the data warehouse, data lake, lake house, you can skip certain part of this video and you can jump to the next session. So where we'll be covering each and every principle of the data mesh. And the final session will be going through a use case of how to implement the data mesh in an organization level. Okay, let us start. The first thing is what and why we need data mesh. The ultimate aim of each organization is to augment and improve every aspect of business and life with data. So, last few years we have a lot of technology changes which primarily focus on the scalable of storage and compute. It does not address few of the critical points that is required for the data set. Some of them are the changes in the data landscape. For example, delta or CDC data that comes in, right? How we are we are going to handle that one, and what would be the speed of response to that change. And the next important thing is profilation of sources and target of data that is being missed on all this thing. And in the model when we have variety of data and its use cases. So how we are going to handle this type of data for different use cases is certainly missed in the previous thing. So we have data mesh to address this one and think in a different aspect in terms of data. So instead of seeing as a data, how we are going to see it as a product that can be serving the customers. That is the main principles of the data mesh. So I will cover those in the final part of this session. Okay. Before that, we'll see what are the architecture designs that came for data over the few decades. So if you see this diagram, right, it will give a high level information of when data arrows came and when data lake, cloud, lake house came. So first we'll start with the data. I don't want to spend much time on this one. So we'll start with the data warehouse to know at the high level. So data warehouse is a place where we store data from multiple sources from the relational DB legacy system. So all structured data will be pulled from the system and stored to the centralized place called data warehouse. Before storing, we'll be doing a transformation, data quality check, enrichment, everything will be done in the ETL part. So it works on a ETL way: extract, transform, load. Since we are doing all the data quality checks, cleansing, transformation, and all, right, the data that is available in data warehouse is a considered as a source of truth, and this data is served to BA tools for generating the reports, dashboards, etc. So let's see what is the benefits and disadvantage of this one. So benefits already we have covered, and disadvantage if you see is it suppose only the structured data. It does not talk about, it does not handle, it cannot handle the unstructured and semi-structured data. So for this modern world, right, this is a mandatory thing which is being missed in the data warehouse. Second thing is the cost. The implementation and maintenance cost is very high in the data warehouse. So to overcome this different type of data, right, semi-structure and other, we have the data lake which came in the late of 2010, which supports all structured, semi-structured, unstructured data. So one important thing is in the data warehouse, we have to create the schema, then only we can write the data. Whereas in the data lake, it's a different thing. We can extract the data from different sources, write to the centralized place in data lake. Then you can fetch the data and do the transformation and serve the downstream systems. That is one of the advantage. So it supports both ETL and ELT thing. The main disadvantage, if you see here, the acid is not being fully support. Though we have few utilities like Apache Hudi and Delta Lake, we have, it's not that much effective in the data lake. Then governance and security. So we have lot of governance tool, right? Informatica EDC tools and all. Those type of things is lagging in this data lake concepts. So that is the main challenges in the Delta Lake. So to overcome this challenge, right, we have a new design which is called Lakehouse, which came around 2021. So it supports the acid thing with the help of the Delta Lake. So it has the Delta Lake and it supports that one acid thing. And in addition to that, it supports a multiple versioning and all, versioning of data, indexing, and metadata. So it came in 2021, right? So it's not fully yet explored in different type of projects to confirm this is a, whether this model is a efficient model or that over the years only we can know. So all this whatever we saw, right, stores the data in a centralized place. So what happens is some team that is handling the that centralized place extract the data from different source system. They are not aware of the data. So they are just extracting, storing somewhere, and downstream system consumes the data. They do some cleansing and they are using in their systems. So the question is, who is the owner of this data? Who knows the data very well? That is a very big question here. In all these models, no. The centralized team does not know the data very well. If something, some data format, some attributes gets changed in the source data, right, it will affect the entire thing up to the downstream systems. So here we are just thinking as a data. We are just taking and manipulating something. Whereas to address these points, right, we have a data mesh which thinks differently apart from these models and designs. It thinks data as a product. So I'll quickly go to the principles and I'll explain that one. So there are four data mesh principles available. The first one is domain oriented decentralized data ownership and architecture. So for now So far, we have seen it as a centralized architecture or thing. Now we are moving to a decentralized approach, that too at the domain level. So when you take an organization, there will be different organization units or BUs like sales, finance, marketing, like that. We'll be having a different domains. Right? For each domain, each domain have a separate set of data that people's, either data analyst or a data source, they understand the data very well. So they are the right person to become a data owner for this data. The first principle what it says is, first we'll be identifying the domains for that particular organization, and for that domain there will be a data owner being identified. So if you see example, there will be a domain created for sales and another for marketing, another for finance. Each will be having a separate data owner, and each domain will be having a different system to serve their application. They will be having a different legacy system. The operational data will be different, and they know what is the upstream systems and what is the downstream system, which data has to be served. So there will be a separate architecture design for each domain based on the uh, systems that they have and the data that is being consumed. The first principle says that it's a domain level, we are decentralizing the data and its architecture. Second thing, data as a product. So far we are not seeing data as a product, but in this data mesh, right, it it sees in a different angle, saying that the data has to be seen as a product so that it can serve the customer. The customer might be a downstream system, either BA tools or data science or any third party SaaS applications, whoever might be. So this product, this has to be built, data has to be built as a product so that it automatically inject the required data, operational data, and it creates the analytical thing like based on the downstream system requirement, create the analytical thing, data metrics, etc. And the customers can just make a request and they can get the data. So it's seen as a product, not as a data. Third principle is, since we are going with the separation of domain, each domain to build the data product, they need a infrastructure. So infrastructure to provision it either on premises or cloud, we need a experts to provision the environment. So for all the domains, we cannot have multiple experts doing that activity. So the our idea is to have a centralized data infrastructure which serves as a platform for all the domains. So you have a centralized infrastructure where each data owner or data product person will be sending a request saying that I need this set of infrastructure for my particular domain. So it's a self request they will send, automatically it will get provisioned, and it will infrastructure will be ready for the data product and its deployment, build and deployment. The last principle is the federated computational governance. So now we talked about multiple domains, right? There will be a sales, finance, marketing and all, product and all. So at the end, some people's downstream systems will be generating a report joining the data of sales and products So they are doing a cross domain joins and doing some computation. So this is the most important thing in this data mesh principle, where we'll be having a group of people who will be playing the governance role, and they will be discussing with the data owners and data infra platform team to see which computation can be localized and which can be globalized. Localized will be implemented as part of the product, and generic will be common, where they will be joining and extracting the data. So this governance plays a key role in achieving all these first 3 points. So the main principle here, right? So we are, as a in a data mesh, we see data as a product which serves all the customers based on their needs. It's a different view, right? So we'll dig into each principle in the upcoming sessions with some examples, and finally we'll see some use cases implemented. Okay. So final slide for this session is, there are certain concerns that comes into our mind at the beginning is, since we are moving from centralized to decentralized and creating a data as a product, there will be a large huge investment needed from the organization side for this change. They have to hire some quality data engineers and infrastructure people to get these things done. One important challenge we might be facing is, if we are not designing the domain local global thing, right, the performance of joining multiple domains data might be leading to a performance issue. We'll see more, talk about more those in the upcoming sessions. Thank you. We'll meet you on next video on data mesh principle. Thank you. Have a good day.